The main thumbnail.
I'm Doug Jones, and you have discovered Beyond Trek Podcast.
It did the intro.
Oh, I am so sorry. So it looks like we have it now. Oh, I am so sorry. So, wow. That's great.
I'm in a box.
Woo! Well, thanks everyone for your patience. We really, really appreciate it. So, yeah, just had a couple odd technical things going on there, which is to be expected when you're working with technical stuff. So, yeah, well, Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
First time streaming live. It happens.
Oh,
we won't do this next week, we promise.
Well, that's the thing with this is it works fine when you're testing it, but then when you want to actually go live, it's like, we're not going to do it.
All right, so do we want to start over with the first scene again?
Oh yeah, we're starting everything over because it's just
right,
now.
You saw that link that I posted way above. That's the link to a bunch of screenshots that we usually use to share our episodes. And so you guys can scroll through them while we talk about it, because we're just going to go over season 3, episode 11, Sukal, and break it all down for you.
And if anyone has left the chat or left the video, pull them back in here. Tell them these guys got their asses back into gear. So yeah, now we're going. So Dag, you want to do the introductions and get us ready for the spoilers?
Yeah. So this is my esteemed co-host Renzo.
Hi.
That's my esteemed co-host Jay.
Hi, I'm Big J. I'm the IT guy that's trying to keep this thing afloat.
What would we do without you? And I'm Dag, and most of you know that I've been messing with you guys in the chats for a bunch of shows now. So it's nice to see your pretty faces, and you to see mine. I really can't see your pretty faces. All I can see is your usernames. Spoilers for all of the stuff that's coming out for this episode.
Spoiler alert.
It kicks off in the middle of the celebration of Giorgio's life from the last episode.
It's like right after.
Right after. Yeah.
Okay.
Right there in the room. And Adira is kind of just standing there, not really knowing what to do. And Stamets is like, hey, you're part of this family too. And Gray shows up and is like, I don't really know how to exist like this, but I was kind of a jerk for disappearing on you. And Stamets gives him the 5th degree, and he's like, you can't do that to my Adira. Stamets super overprotective gay dad. Love it.
Now, how does this work with Gray and Adira being able to see Gray? Because it seems like it's something he can't control. Gray can't control his appearances.
It's just unexplained, right? It's one of those we're gonna have to keep watching, keep trying to understand it more. But at this point, we don't know that it's not a hallucination, like a tumor or something along those lines, is causing.
It's not a tumor.
Imagine it, right? We just don't know.
Well, Adira might be the first human with a successful symbiont transplant, but we also remember that DS9 episode Field of Fire, where Ezri was able to call upon Joran Balar and see him as a manifestation. So this might be something similar to that without the Trill ritualism.
So it kind of works the way the plot needs it to work.
Basically, I mean, remember in Field of Fire,
to work.
There were scenes where Ezri essentially was struggling to maintain control over the influence of the older host.
Mm-hmm.
So could still be relevant here.
That is true.
Okay, all right, I'll go with it.
After that exchange, Adira and Stamets get a notification from the computer. It is done connecting to the Kiev, and it notes that there is a life form aboard after 120 years. Seemingly impossible also due to the amount of radiation that it is in next to its hollowed out dilithium planet.
That's a long time to be alone.
Yeah, it is. Immediately, Saru orders Discovery to jump to the location. They find a big storm. They try to pilot through the storm, but it is dangerous and hazardous and radioactive.
neat detail in this jump. We actually do get a good enough angle on it to see that the nacelles do not make contact with the pylons. They remain floating during the jump. So that little wonder from earlier on in the season is definitely now answered. They don't reattach for jumping.
Oh, they didn't. Oh, they should, because aren't they worried that those things are just going to go flying off?
They spun around with the whole thing and jumped right on in as normal.
Okay.
Maybe the programmable matter just need to get a hold of what this spore stuff was before it could just be like, yeah, we're cool. We can do this with wireless nacelles.
It'd be a bad time to lose that Bluetooth connection to your nacelle. Captain, we just lost connection with the starboard nacelle.
They're
What?
probably not used though, right? Like I can't imagine that they have anything to do with the spore drive, right? They're probably just there as decoratives at this point.
We have ornamental nacelles.
Put Christmas lights on them.
So Saru wants to take the risk, but everybody's calling out damage that's happening to the ship. And Michael makes a plea with Saru. Book steps up and says, you know what? My ship is smaller. It can morph, and I can probably get through faster than Discovery could. So let me do it. Saru takes a tense moment staring at the screen. And he's like, yeah, no, that's cool. Let's do that. They launch Book's ship, and Discovery backs out of the nebula. Book is flying through the ship, and it looks so cool, just
Yes.
coming apart and coming back together.
Delightfully, we did get some scenes where Detmer has her groove back. Like she's confident in the seat, she's taking control of the ship. She's no longer like scared or fidgeting while she's steering, which is amazing. It's good to see that she's grown that confidence back. We see the whole crew acting kind of like a well-oiled machine. Like they talk about, like, where's Nilsson? She's like, oh, she's off doing X, Y, or Z, deflector control or something, right? Like everybody's doing their job. This isn't like a crew that's fraying at the edges right now. They were doing exactly what they had to be.
Well, and I really think Saru was starting to let it get to him to save this Kelpian wherever he is, because he really was putting in more delay in getting out of there than I really think he should have. It kind of reminds me of, and again, for all of you listening, watching, viewing, we could be spoiling any number of things in Star Trek. So just sorry, fair warning, this one is in regards to Star Trek Beyond. It's not a huge spoiler, but
honestly, all you guys just came from the Family Feud episode, and you know all the spoilers about Klingon weapons and time travel. And
I miss a Family Feud.
We got this.
So you remember Star Trek Beyond, when those ships started attacking the Enterprise, Kirk orders them to attack. Spock tries to tell him, we're not equipped for this manner of engagement. And Kirk should have just turned tail and gotten the hell out of there a lot sooner than when he decided it was time to go. And that was the same thing I felt Saru was doing here, was that he let his emotions...
Hold on too long? Yeah.
Yeah, he was holding on too long and could have lost the ship.
You're not wrong.
Let's remember, right? Like the Kirk that we have in Beyond has a 5-year mission under his belt. He's got a little experience. He's not like a super well-honed captain.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saru has even less. Saru's got a week, like a couple months, whatever. He's a newbie at this job. So him being a little overconfident or a little gun-shy, both extremes, are going to happen to a newbie captain. I think that's pretty realistic, especially when he's got this whole notion now that there is a Kelpian on that ship alive. And they've been there for 100 years alone, and it's a Kelpian, and I'm a Kelpian. Oh God, it's a Kelp. He's going to focus on it. So.
Right. Okay.
It's got to be the weirdest thing to be in a season of Star Trek with continuity like this, where you're like, why is it every year we have one really bad week?
It's just a fact of life.
Fine. Then we have this 1 week where suddenly the entire universe is going to explode, and we have to fix it in a week. I don't get it.
This is a great comment that we got from, is it War Dogheim?
Yeah.
Sitting in that command chair does stuff to the brain. I wonder if it fills you with overconfidence.
There might be like pheromones on the surface of it that just like mess with you.
So I think that question comes up later in the episode, Big J. I think that they talk about that quite a bit, right? Like being in the big chair.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's definitely a good discussion.
We can definitely touch on that when we get to that moment.
Yeah, good observation, War
meantime,
Dogheim. Sorry, Dag.
Book is booking it through this nebula
With his transformer ship.
with his transformer ship. And he ends up in orbit of the dilithium planet, and he is able to establish jump coordinates for Discovery that are safe. And right before he maybe passes out due to radiation sickness, he puts his ship on autopilot and it books it back to Discovery. We end up in sickbay where we learn that
Him and Grudge both
he-
required recombining of their DNA.
Oh, poor Grudge.
right.
Listen, as a pet parent, that scene must have been heart-wrenching for people, right? Like, who puts their pet in danger like that?
Right. Yeah, that was. Yeah, poor Grudge. I'm sure she handled it just like the queen she is.
It's interesting because right when Book docks his ship, Michael says, "We found the source of the burn," which I kind of felt was like obvious because this was the summation of all that data we got from Vulcan on the SB-19, and maybe we felt this was the source of the burn, but also this episode declares that what we thought was the source of the burn was completely different than anything we ever thought before.
Now, I just want to be the first one to say, and I was talking to my son, Nacho, about this. I said, if they take the burn and wrap it up as basically an accident, I will be very disappointed. It should not be an oops. And I really think that that's exactly where we're going, is that it was an oops. And if it is, I'm just going to say, I think that that's a cop-out.
Well, we talked about this in one of the previous episodes. Remember, Big J, we talked about how like Oppenheimer and many of the early nuclear physicists thought that the original nuclear bomb test would ignite the atmosphere and turn the Earth into a cinder, right? So yeah, I'm definitely with you. I don't like this as a solution to the burn like problem. I think that this is kind of lame, but not for the same reasons you do. I think that my objection to it is just and none of the other omni-powerful beings would have had any problem with this just happening. None of them would have just stopped this. They would have just ignored it. You think? Yeah, so I have issues with it, but not the same ones, I suspect.
I mean, this kid could have a temporal parasite that if we heal it, we end up back at the beginning where it all began, and nothing ever happened again. Archer,
if they do the Voyager reset button, I'm done. I'm turning in my Trek fan club credentials. I'll be done with it.
I have too many uniforms to give it up.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just looking at my closet of uniforms. Like,
I don't mind the reset button. I mind the laziness of the writing. Like, I think that this is kind of a lazy cop-out way. Oh, some super powerful being that didn't know that they had these powers just caused it. Sure, are we going with Phoenix? Is this like X-Men 3 now? Like, what is the explanation for like radiation just gave him superpowers? Come on. There's better theories or better explanations than that. Right. We'll see if they come up with something better, but we'll see. Okay. In the story, we were in sickbay with Grudge and Book getting all their...
So actually, that's bit later.
Oh, okay. Keep going.
The credits roll, and Vance is in the captain's ready room being briefed on the dilithium planet. Saru describes the vessel they intend to investigate. It's catastrophic on the outside and hospitable on the inside. Vance expresses doubt about Tilly's abilities to take the chair while Saru is on this away mission. But Saru expresses confidence, and Vance is like, okay.
Yeah.
He also shares that the life form must be the child of the Kelpian doctor that we saw in a previous episode, and that the marks on her forehead that we thought were radiation sickness were actually signs of a Kelpian pregnancy. We note that the burn must have happened when that child was 4 or 5 years old. So that kid's been alone for 120 years.
I don't like the fact that Saru is secretive about it being a pregnancy situation. I think that that's kind of like a failing on his part. If he recognized that she was pregnant in that recording, he should have been more forthright about that to his crew. He doesn't trust them enough.
What do you think? Writing issue or character issue?
Yeah, I want to hear...
Character issue, actually.
I want to see what the folks in live chat think about that, because you're right. To me, that's the whole Anakin Skywalker going to hug Padme, who has a belly, she's pregnant, and then doesn't know until she tells him. So suddenly Saru sees that this Kelpian is, okay, apparently he sees that she's pregnant, doesn't say anything about it. And I want to say that I think that's the writers not wanting to
give it up.
They don't want to give up a plot point that's going to happen later, even if it defies logic.
I don't know. know. For me, it seems more like it's just some sort of weird character failing. Like he doesn't trust his crew enough to tell them things that are like secretive and Kelpian, or he doesn't want to bring that up because he thought the crew might then suspect that he's even more emotionally compromised than he already is, right? Because it's clear he's compromised, right? Just in caring about the Kelpian aspect of things.
Right.
But if there was a pregnant one involved more, does he think that Vance would reassign him? Like, I don't know if it's a writing thing. Watney and the rest of y'all in chat, you're probably right because I'm not super impressed with the writing this season in many ways, but like I want to put it as a character flaw, not a writing flaw.
You know what? Here's an interesting thing. We don't know a lot about Kelpians. We are following the footsteps of the first Kelpian to be post Vahari, as far as we know, in this universe. And I will get to like observations that I made in this episode where I was like, is this another advancement of Kelpian biology? But everything that we think that's happening with Saru could be a biological response to being like, you're pregnant, we have to keep it a secret because we're a predator species and we don't want the predators to prey on you first. Could be.
Well, and then I know I missed it because I don't even remember seeing spots on this doctor, or if I did, I didn't think much of it. But I guess in hindsight, it would have been nice to realize that, oh, they're putting in something that's going to be a trait or a feature of this species that will make sense in the next episode. So, yeah, and that's kind of the consensus here in our live chat is that the writing it's leaning more towards the writing is what suffered this setup.
So let's discuss what they found in the Verubin Nebula, right? Like we've alluded to it a couple times, but go ahead.
Right, yeah, we're gonna get through there, guys. We have a whole series of notes off screen, so we're just piling through them. And I wanted to note that Vance also tells them that Osira is doing drills near Kaminar, and that is, Saru's homeworld. And he says, "Don't worry, we'll take care of it." Then we flash to sick bay. We have Book, who's been recovered from some DNA recombination, as well as Grudge. Everyone's happy to see Grudge, and the best cameo this episode features so far. Anybody
I always like seeing a Grudge.
Come see me.
Yeah, I always like seeing a Grudge cameo. Well, and we were talking about this earlier with doing harm to pets. Why is it that to see pets in danger is kind of almost more of, grabbing your armchair, tense kind of thing. And I'm going to bring this one up, Independence Day. In 1996.
Yeah, the dog scene.
Yeah, the dog scene. I was on the edge of my seat like, oh my God, not the dog, not the dog. There's millions of people dying left and right. But the dog, it's like, run, you've got to make it. And
Dante's Peak does it too, right? With the boat and the grandmother and then the dog. And it's like you're cared about the dog, not the grandma. Yeah, a lot of movies do this, tugging at heartstrings of people with like pet things. Real effective.
Yeah, it works.
In this moment, Michael confronts Book and is like, I don't know if Saru can be objective here. I'm really worried about his, bias towards this kid. But, maybe he'll learn a strong lesson about what it means to be a captain. So we're going to go anyway. Engineering. Stamets is telling Hugh he cannot go. Too much radiation, it'll kill him. Hugh says he needs to go for himself. It's not about Stamets. It's not about Adira. It's about Hugh continuing to find himself after his mushroom resurrection.
I like that. Mushroom Resurrection.
It's a band name.
Are you serious?
No, it is now.
Oh, okay.
But Stamets recognizes that and they kiss.
Yes.
Tilly goes to, I don't know if it's her shared quarters with Michael anymore or if it's just, her and
her old quarters, maybe.
I mean, we know that Michael flipped after that promise that they made, which was kind of cool.
The ship is half empty. The shift is half empty. Why do you have people bunking in the same room? I just don't get it.
To save on life support costs.
Right. Yeah. To save on lighting, life support, heat,
to save on sets,
electric.
Is more like it.
Same. And Tilly just expresses her ambivalence about being in charge while Saru was away. Michael says, gives some hopeful advice and says there's a burr under the armrest of the captain's chair that she can press for support, as Giorgio and Saru have done before her on their respective ships. On the bridge, they waste no time navigating into those coordinates that Book sent them, and the away team beams off. Tilly takes the chair and issues her first command, Black Alert.
This is one hell of a scenario to have an ensign in command of your ship, and there's nothing like learning on fire. I guess that's the best way to do it. Is just throw
toss
her
them
right in
deep
there.
end. Whichever ones can swim get to be captain.
So there was a couple episodes ago I made a prediction that we were going to get. Sorry, this is when we were discussing Tilly becoming EXO the very first time. I made a prediction that we're going to get an episode in an episode or two where for some reason Saru's off ship and Tilly has to captain the ship, and it's how we're going to see her being plucky and proving herself and all that. And here we have it. We have this great episode, or this great couple scenes where Tilly gets to be plucky badass against Osira, and she's trying to prove herself. But
Right.
I love it when those little predictions do, come right true.
You had
It
a
makes
good
me wonder, did Star Trek The Next Generation predict this with their third season episode, The Ensigns of Command?
Perhaps. Yeah. That's a long payoff for a 30-year-old joke.
So the away team materializes on the ship, and the first thing we notice is they're not in uniform and they have none of their gear. And oh, by the way, Culber is a
Spots.
Bajoran, Michael is a Trill, and Saru, who guessed it? Who guessed it? I guessed it.
Yeah, for sure.
I kind of did, but not really. Now, this is going to sound terrible, but I want to tell you guys the thought that went through my head. I don't know why, but this is what happened. Okay, so Burnham looks at Culber and says, "You're a Bajoran." Culber looks at Burnham and says, "You're a Trill." And then Saru starts walking up, and Michael, I could have swore to God, she's, "Saru, you're black." And so, yeah, as a black man, I don't know why my brain went there, but it just, I will disconnect my video feed and audio right now if I need to.
No. No.
Yeah.
But, yes,
my
if
brain
you're
just goes there
listening along,
sometimes.
Many of you may have rightfully guessed that Saru was totally going to be a human. And if you watch this week's episode of The Ready Room, you could see how excited Doug Jones was to not have all those prosthetics glued to his face. And he was even bragging during the breaks. Ha ha, you have to show up hours early for makeup. Ah, ha, 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 ha. It was really good. But he did have a wig. Because
Really?
of his Kelpian makeup, his hair is usually like shaved very bald.
Oh,
And so he did have a wig for this scene.
okay.
It was actually really well shot, I thought. And I like the way that they revealed it where you can see his feet first.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the very notable things about the Kelpians. They walk on like their toes, their digitigrade, I think is the word.
And he even
So,
says it. He says,
yeah.
my heels are touching the ground.
Yeah.
I am wondering why Michael knows what a Bajoran is, though. I don't know if that one makes sense yet, but
I thought about that, but then I also thought if you're a science officer in the 30-something century and you have access to historical data on Starfleet, you may have briefed yourself.
that's a lot to read, though. There's a lot out there.
Yeah, but the Bajorans played a significant role in 24th century
So
politics.
700 years before.
Hey, we still talk about stuff that happened in the 1400s,
Right. We do.
1300s. The plague.
Well,
Plague's a big deal. The plague could have been the Dominion War.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and plus it was minimal makeup impact. So what were their choices? Trill, Bajoran, Vulcan, Romulan,
Betazoid? Just give them contacts?
Betazoid.
Black contacts.
Right. Yeah. So I think given
I think the choices are fine. I'm not complaining about the choices. I think that they're perfectly good ones, actually. I think
Okay.
that the adjusted earring that they had for Culber was really good too. It looked much nicer than the one that they had in DS9. But yeah, it looked great. I'm not complaining about the quality of it. I just think it's kind of funny that it was Michael being like, "You're a Bajoran," like she knows Bajorans well, when I don't think that they've had first contact.
60 years before the occupation.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. All right. Yep. I'll leave that one alone before I throw the the wheels right off this bus. But you're right, Renzo. That's a good point. I don't think there was first contact made with the Bajorans at the. Oh well, but Michael did have that year alone on the
Oh, that's
walkabout in
fair.
the 30-second. Okay, so
And there are Bajorans
Aha.
there. Yeah, that one makes sense.
We
yeah,
make sense of things.
they're
Like,
going to use that year that Michael's on her own to like fill every gap in the plot.
Melissa just said the same thing. So it's canon now. You guys rule.
Yeah, no, that one makes sense.
Yep.
So they don't have anything from what they were supposed to bring with them. So they can't feel their badges, their weapons, or their equipment. The holo program is probably masking it somehow. And if they don't get their radiation meds, they're going to succumb to this nebula. Saru tries to end the program in both standard Federation and Kelpian to no effect. After some discussion, the team walks in the direction of a voice. It's a holo program teaching cooking. Its uniform is reminiscent of Discovery's. Deducing the computer's interpretation of their presence on the ship, Michael asks what the purpose of the program is. This kills the hologram. It zaps out of existence. Can't process that.
I love that we've now discovered 2 ways to kill holo programs in this season. You can blink at them at a certain refresh rate, or you can just ask them questions they don't know the answer to. They should have tried that with Moriarty. Just ask him a question he can't answer, and he'll just poof out of existence.
I
Can
can't
you
believe
imagine how much fun Kirk would have paradoxing these guys?
Oh, God, yeah. Talk computers to death, that's his MO.
He'll just ask them paradoxical questions while blinking his eyes, and the emitters will just short out.
I can't believe you said blinking at the same refresh rate for those holograms.
That's basically what Giorgio said it was
Yeah.
their emitter resonance or something.
Yep.
So they proceed towards this ruined structure with solid MC Escher vibes. It's
Yeah.
spooky and there's lightning, and their clothing has changed once again, maybe signifying that there are emitter zones for those characters on the holodeck. There's some weird aliens flying around in the skies that at first sight I thought were like the orchids from the last episodes of Picard. Real interesting to me.
With you there, I also thought they looked kind of plant-like, very weird. I thought that they'd actually play a role in this somehow. I thought that, they might have to like hide from it or dodge it, like some sort of like dragon in the skies kind of moment, but none of that came through. Probably for the best.
Not for them, but there was a moment like that we're stumbling upon.
Yeah, yeah. But it wasn't really quite the same creature though, either.
So when they get to this area, they note that there's this chain door and there are monuments placed around it that are deemed to be some kind of ritual protection stones. Then they hear someone singing and they think it's a hologram, but it's the person we've been looking for, the as yet unnamed Kelpian. Saru tries to explain that they're real from the outside, and this breaks the Kelpian.
Does not compute.
Yeah. The chain door flies open, and our unnamed person, Sukal, runs off. The party splits. Michael investigates the door, where there's a beast behind it, and Saru and Kolber look for Sukal.
Wait a minute. This just hit me. So he's on a ship, been on the ship for 120 plus years. He's currently inside of and has always been inside of a holodeck. Then if he's on a holodeck, what is he doing for nutrition and sustenance?
So we know from even TNG times that holodecks can generate matter, and you can consume said matter. So he's eating replicated matter in a holodeck, and the technology at that point, because it's 31st century technology, is advanced enough to not even make a difference between the two.
But he doesn't know that he can ask for food because he was just a child when.
Maybe so. They mentioned that there was orchards or something at one point that he used to
Kelp
harvesting, right? Yeah, kelp harvesting. So there must have been some sort of food agriculture or something like that. He was had access
Farming
to.
holographic food?
Bear
Sure.
with me.
Okay. All right.
The reason some of these holographic areas are no longer accessible is because the energy to produce said holograms has been converted into sustenance for the kid. That energy has to go somewhere, and you can't violate the laws of thermodynamics with holographic technology unless the writers say so. But I'd like to think they got this one right.
I don't
I've
know.
wagered that they probably have just a power generation system somewhere that's just giving them energy, and from it they're making matter from it.
That's quite a stretch.
Is it?
I'm. To me, I think that's enough of a stretch where I could stand flat-footed and be able to touch my toes, and that's not easy to do. So that's just my opinion.
We flash back to Discovery. There's a communication that comes in while engineering is trying to determine what's happening. It's scary because they can't jump in till shields are restored. Owo detects a ship approaching and says it's a Federation ship, but they're not responding to
Yay!
hails.
One big happy fleet.
Right. Federation ship out here, middle of nowhere. It's night, spooky. We don't have shields. It's totally cool.
Right. No
What's the
problem.
worst that could happen?
We're about to find out. The away team finds a presentation of when Kaminar joined the Federation. It's a series of holograms that are programmed to wait for outsiders to rescue the child. And can I say, I love the multiple representations of uniforms that we're getting in this holodeck. The first hologram by the tree, these guys here, it tickles me because guys know I collect uniforms.
Yes, like Pokemon, you collect uniforms.
Got to have them all.
Yep.
So Culber is just bombarding the holograms for medical information about the kid. How'd you keep him alive? What's going on here? How, blah, 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 blah. And the holo responds and confirms that their appearances have been altered to not scare the child without really answering any of Culber's questions. But there's some kind of anticipated input, and both Saru and Culber say, yes, we're here to rescue the kid, to which everyone's cool. Everybody claps.
Yeah. Golf clap.
Back to Michael, who stayed in that chamber with the spooky ghost. She is accosted by a Death Eater. I mean, the beast.
A Baul?
There's a lot of spook here, but Michael holds her hands up, signifying that she means no harm. I went a little nuts here in my brain. I suddenly thought that, like, this beast was actually what happens to a Kelpian after 125 years of life.
Ooh.
I was just like speculating so hard, like, whoa, we've never experienced Kelpians before. What if this is what Saru has to look forward to?
Did they ever? I don't think I ever caught what the thing actually was.
They haven't said.
They did in this episode.
No,
What?
they didn't. They didn't. They said that it's like his own imagination of what's chasing him. The
It's
outside
part of the
world.
story.
Yeah, but
It's part of the story.
I
It's
think
the
it looked
beast
like
of
a
the story.
Baul.
I mean, okay, you're right. It's like saying this is the burn without actually nailing down that it's the kid. You're right. I just figure it's the gatekeeper to outside. Like, once you face your fear of going outside, everything will be happy and dandy, and then you can go.
Maybe it's like a test, essentially. Once you're adult enough to face your fear, you're adult enough to go outside or know that the outside world exists.
Mhm.
Maybe something he should have figured out when he was like a teenager.
Go outside where? The rest of the ship?
No, not outside. I mean, like, to know that the outside world exists. 'Cause
Oh,
so far,
okay.
he doesn't seem to even know. And I'm pretty sure that the ship was crashed on that dilithium planet, right?
I thought it was in orbit, but it might actually be on the planet.
I
missed
thought
that.
it was in orbit too, but
I thought it was on the planet.
I
but
don't
yeah.
know that was clear. So if anyone in our chat audience believes that they have a thought, maybe something we missed that established if the ship was in orbit or if it was somehow crashed into the planet, that'd be great.
I wanted to riff on that for a second because you guys gave me an idea, and as quickly as it entered my brain, it just went away.
That's what happens with old age, Dag.
Thanks. Yeah, once I'm post Fahare like you.
Is that a no hair joke? Is that a no hair joke?
I'll shave
that a ball
if I
joke?
need to.
Okay.
I promise.
Don't do that.
So the ghost chases Michael to a ledge where she seems to fall, but somehow just like hits a warp point to the ceiling and disappears into the sky.
That was weird too. Just randomly got yeeted into the sky.
I recently watched a video about like Super Mario speedruns, and apparently somebody hit a point in the game that had been triggered by a cosmic ray that had flipped a bit in the circuit. and it allowed that person to go from the level they were on to the next level up without even moving.
Oh,
So I just applied that to this. It's just a glitch in the matrix.
okay. All right. Well, we've had to go with a lot of incredulous things already up to this point, so it's like, all right, why not?
Back on Discovery, they figure out it's Osira that's coming. And just as they figure that out, she warps in, weapons hot. Book explains that she must have used a transwarp conduit to get here, which is a risky move in this time. Tilly orders Discovery to cloak. Love it. And
Yes.
Osira's ship cloaks too. With everyone seemingly on the line, Tilly rubs that nub for support.
Can
Now,
I?
I am
Oh,
wondering-
yeah, that was a good phrase there. Rubs the nub for support. And maybe it's just because I'm up too late. I don't know. Never mind.
I am wondering why they just decided to have like a regular cloaking device installed. Though I like the fact that they have a cloaking device. I like that a lot. But why just a cloaking device rather than an interphasing cloak? So that they could essentially just be like, oh, fuck you. We're just going to fly through things now. Because they had the technology for that all the way back in TNG.
They did. And if I were going to counter with that, with speculation, I would say that they may be. I'm hearing myself in my ears. That's why it's tripping at my words. There may have been a point where phase cloaks were in service, but the countermeasures to them became common enough that it reduced any advantage phase cloaking had.
It's
But
possible.
what about against environmental concerns?
Like what?
Oh, just phase
Environment-
cloak through the nebula?
Through the nebula, through the Verubin Nebula.
That might have been the radiation even more of a threat
Right.
because you're basically passing your phase
Didn't-
body through
Didn't
pockets of
Geordi stick his
radiation.
head in the warp reactor at one point?
Yes, he did. But
Didn't they stick their arms into a quantum singularity at one point?
yes, yes, they did.
Just saying. I get it.
You
There's-
guys are
you're-
gonna make me draw a happy face in a warp core
I
explosion.
love
That's
that
Oh,
what you guys are gonna make me do.
Now, it was awesome that the ship cloaked, which brought me to the problem that I have through the entire bigger portion of the Federation, and signing a treaty to not develop cloaking technology, which was in 2311, the Treaty of Algernon.
Algernon. Yeah.
Okay, Treaty of Algernon. So apparently there was some big, huge thing that happened that involved the Romulans, and somehow out of that, the Federation agreed to not develop cloaking technology. And I'm just wondering, what is it? What would make the Federation agree to something like that in a treaty? I mean, what power was held by the Romulans where they could say, we don't want you to do this, and that the Federation went along with it?
So it has never been said in canon what it was, but in beta canon, both games and in books, they've given some details on both. In one of them, it was the Romulans invading worlds along the border, and so the discussion was, okay, well that means war. Oh no, we'll back off, but you got to give us something if we'll back off. We won't develop cloaking devices. That was the trade. That's not a bad deal to prevent war. In another one, there was a story about it's from a book called Echoes of the Past, right? Where it was to end a war that started just after the Klingon War that they had in TOS times.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a just straight up, we'll sign on the dotted line, prevent each other from escalating this. There's a bunch of explanations for it throughout Star Trek canon, or beta canon, not prime canon.
It just seems like a tactical advantage that I'm surprised that they signed away to not do.
I think it's just part of the cat and mouse game, right? Like the Federation has better sensors, so your cloaking devices don't really matter. We'll just catch you anyways. Oh, you developed a new one? Oh, we'll develop some new sensors, and back and forth and back and forth.
Okay.
It's
I think the
Cloak-
Federation special effects advisors were like, we don't want the Enterprise to decloak every episode, so we're just going to sign this treaty.
yeah, I mean that's part of the concern, right? Like the cloaking device is as much an advantage as it is a disadvantage, which somebody I think just mentioned in chat, right? Like when you cloak, you are vulnerable. When you decloak, you are vulnerable. So
Oh, okay.
there's a moment there where you're definitely putting yourself at risk. Whereas if your enemy can detect you, what do you gain by having it?
Okay, that's true. I mean, to me, I think the pros outweigh the cons, but that's a whole other different discussion. It was nice to see Discovery with a cloaking device, and hopefully to see that in somewhere in the last 800, 900 years that Starfleet is just like, fuck it. We need this. We need cloaking.
Well, if
We
the
need it all.
Romulan Empire no longer exists, who do you maintain the treaty with?
Right. With the treaty would be null and void, right? If the Romulan government essentially was gone.
Especially if they were focusing on reunification with the Vulcans.
Exactly, and I think that that's probably a big deal, right? Like,
Okay.
we know that reunification happened before they left the Federation, so that means that they must have learned a ton about Romulan technology when that happened. There must have been some tech exchange.
Mhm.
So I'm sure that Starfleet's current 32nd century cloaking devices are as good as any of the Romulans ever had on their own. Doesn't mean that they're perfect still.
Okay.
They've got to have a tailpipe, right?
That thing's got to have a tailpipe. Doctor, would you care to assist me in performing surgery on the torpedo? Sorry, Star Trek 6 line.
It's one of my favorite
Oh,
movies.
yeah,
of
no,
anything.
it's great.
Mm-hmm.
But this isn't a Star Trek 6 podcast. It has Jay.
No.
We know.
Anyways.
We know.
So Michael wakes up from her sky high next to Sukal, who asks if she's a program. She smiles and plays along. Sukal gleefully asks which one, expressing his delight in finding a new program after all these years. Michael explains she's teaching social interaction to connect him to real people. Sukal expresses disdain over hearing about outside, how old problems used to talk about it, but he assumes the outside is dead. He tells Michael her program is obsolete, and Michael says, I can shut down. And Sukal is like, no, wait. You're new. I want to play. And they begin a lesson into social interactions.
Here's a problem that I have with that scene. So, last time we saw Michael, like I said, she was getting yeeted up into the sky. Then next time we see her, no acknowledgement of that. She's just sitting on a rock chilling. Okay, well, what was the... Maybe I missed it, but I don't think it was just up in the sky, and the next thing, it's... Forget about it. She's there.
Holodecks are weird. I have a video about how holodecks work on YouTube.
I know, but I have a lot of
but-
problems with the writing in this episode because it made that scene superfluous. Like,
Think of it as the end of a video game level, Big J. Think of it as like the end of a level when you walk through a door and you go to someplace else, right? It's a different area, different zone, right? She got yeeted. That ended her time on that level. Now she starts a new level, and then that's where she finds the kiddo.
I mean, I don't
Right?
know.
She's at the
There's
Citadel
no
now.
transition because it is a game.
This-
Holograms.
But this isn't
remember.
the princess is in another castle. It's
Right.
just
That's actually
might as well
literally
be.
what just happened.
Yeah.
Michael got yeeted to his castle.
I walked right into that one, didn't I?
You made it really nice. It wasn't even scripted. We promise.
Now, I got to agree with the chat too, right? Because they're all saying that the acting in that scene was fantastic. And I completely agree. Sonequa acted her ass off on that scene. She was impeccable. The whole
Oh,
reset your program and she just goes, hello. Perfect.
Yeah.
Definitely sold me on it.
We need lessons in holography now. So after that, Saru and Kolber run across a hollow of an elder Kelpian in a chair with a book. They hope he knows where the survivor is. We still don't know their name. There's art of Kelpians. That's when they learn the child's name. It says Sukal. It's a tradition in Kelpian families where after a tragedy, the first child born inherits that name as an omen to an end of suffering, which I think is really cool. Like world building Kelpianness. I love it.
wait, no, hold on. This is great. From Doc Watney in the chat. It was nice to see her talking about Burnham and a Sonequa Martin Green. It was nice to see her acting intensely in a way that didn't involve crying.
Definitely true.
I noted that at the end. I was like, yeah, I really appreciate that. So good call, Watts.
Yeah.
Excellent fake smile for Sulka too, who obviously can't tell because he has no social skills.
Right.
But we can tell as viewers that like, oh, she's acting this.
Yeah.
That's rough, but it's good acting from the actor's perspective.
Because you have to act like you're acting. And that's cool.
Yes. Act like you're acting.
I mean, like somebody in chat pointed out, right? She's a canonically better actor than Picard. Junk Poe said it, and I agreed with him entirely, right?
Great calls.
Yeah. Okay.
Because Picard's mustache twirling French villain was fantastic, but man, was it very two dimensional. So
They approach the Elder and ask if he knows where Sukal is. The hologram explains its own purpose. Culber asks who created him, and we learn that it was the Dr. Isa, previously seen in the holographic message, who is responsible for the entire holographic environment. She created all of us, he says. Michael asks Sukul what he knows about families. Sukul responds, a very, dictionary definition term of family. Michael asks if he remembers his own family. He explains how he liked harvesting kelp in the water and that they ate together. But Sukul rejects that memory and says that environment is no longer functional. Michael asks if he can remember anything before the harvesting environment. Sukul is scared and tells the computer to reset Michael's parameters. Michael reboots and asks for the exit, where Sukal can reset all the parameters. Sukal does not like this at all. He leaves in a very, very Kelpian huff, just arms behind him too.
that's true. He did do the Saru walk, and I noticed that too. And that was
Right.
good.
And
It tells us that it's probably something biological rather than something just like cultural.
right behind the scenes, when the producers told Doug Jones that they were booking Bill Irwin to play that role, Doug Jones hopped on a call with Bill Irwin and basically just explained Kelpian to him. And I think the actor did a really good job of playing not just a Kelpian with mannerisms, movements, and speech, but also a alone, an abandoned person with those ticks and nuances. It was just a really nice fusion of those bubbles.
Yeah, so in real history, we've had situations where human children were raised in a basement or alone, never speaking to anybody, right? Like true cases of abuse and neglect have happened. And those people usually come out of it unable to speak, incredibly damaged with psychological problems that are crippling, right? These are numerous times it's happened, and it's always very tragic. Here we see a situation where the mom was making sure that her kid did not go through the same thing by having this world of holography to keep him entertained, to teach him nuance, teach him things. It's imperfect, but I mean, compared to the alternative, certainly a good job.
Right after Sukal leaves, Michael notes her radiation burn. And I think it's interesting that the holodeck isn't masking that too.
Mm-hmm.
Culber, we seg over to Culber, who also sees his own radiation burn and urges Saru to hurry and finish the mission. Saru asks the Elder if he can find Sukal. The Elders tell of the fortress he hides in when he is afraid. Culber goes looking for Sukal while Saru examines the book the Elder hold. The Elder asks if he'd like a lullaby. Saru listens very intently. We learned that Sukal is protecting himself from the monster in the story with totems and symbols, and the monster's purpose is to remind him that he must face his fear if he and the mission team are to escape. Saru and Culber find the Citadel, and they do a hail to ask Discovery to come quickly. Whether or not that communication is received, because back on Discovery, the situation is tense. The bridge is discussing why Osira hasn't struck yet.
Before we go back to Discovery and Osira, let's talk about that book, though. That book was beautifully drawn. The art in there was really cool. It shows us some things that are pretty neat. It looks like at one point it shows us that the Ba'ul and the Kelpian were holding hands to join the Federation. That's a cool, nifty bit of explanation for us. Stuff like that is good world building. Like if you guys remember in the Avatar movie, how they had a whole lot of like just background books and things that they would show each other, like their stories internally, or books from like the Avatar The Last Airbender TV show. They would have like lots of history and things, just things that you see for like 2 seconds and then they move on.
Are you talking about the Avatar live action movie, the travesty by M. Night Shyamalan?
No,
there isn't one of those. It's like the Mandela effect. It doesn't.
I was talking about the blue people aliens.
Oh, the blue
on
people
Pandora.
Avatar. Gotcha.
That one had these books, but then so did the cartoon that is completely unrelated to the blue people.
Dancing
Avatar in both situations stuck in my head. But yeah.
Was this the Kelpian version of Good Night Goon? You think maybe? You guys have not read that book? Oh, well, you don't have kids yet. Yeah. As soon as you do, you'll know the book I'm talking about. I'm
The only
sure.
Goon I know of is the one from Titan AE, and he was amazing.
I've had to read that book.
Goon, I haven't thought about him in a long time. I finished my nap, he says as he saves the day. If you haven't seen Titan AE, do it.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
All right. We were just going back to Discovery.
Right.
The bridge is discussing why Osira hasn't struck yet. Tilly tells Stamets he only has 10 minutes to get these shields up. Osira calls again, and she and Tilly engage in some banter. Osira digs at her, and Tilly says she's the queen of projection.
I love Tilly. Sorry. I love Tilly squaring up on Osira. That was nice. I mean, that was good. She came out swinging. Tilly came out swinging, and lots of respect there. She was not going to back down. So that right there was a very nice surprise. I was hoping that they wouldn't portray Tilly in this command, her first command, as being just this completely like meek, scared person. Now, when she wasn't talking to Osira, sure, she showed some of that, holy shit, this is my first command, things are not looking good, let's get this stuff figured out. But then when she's talking to her, it's like, all right, listen, bitch, I am not taking any of this attitude, and I will throw it back on you. Which was, I mean, and Osira had to have been like, what did you say to me? And they're just going, I'm sure she was not expecting this, just the sharp tongue back and forth like that.
Again, from an acting perspective, I think that Janet Kidder, the actress for Osira, did a really good job at being like, playing along with this kid who's like just getting in her face. And I think Mary Wiseman, the actress for Tilly, did an incredible job with the code switching that's necessary to go from insecure, I'm my first time captaining, I'm just doing what I can, to, I got to score up with this bitch now. Like, that kind of code switch was perfect for both of them. Loved the acting in this scene. And I really liked the dialogue. I thought the dialogue here was perfect.
It was. Yeah. Impressed. This is probably the one scene in the entire episode that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it had me really gripped. I was just something in Star Trek I don't think I've ever experienced before. Two captains really bantering with this much on the line. Even in, Next Gen, when Picard would square up against Tomalak or another Romulan commander on the bridge screen, you didn't really get that kind of stuff. And this is definitely not singing a Shakespearean sonnet to the Ferengi to get your love back, right? It's not that.
Gag. Ellington and Cisco.
Ooh, classic.
Eddington.
Eddington and Cisco.
Ellington.
Yeah.
You betrayed your uniform.
Yeah. Oh,
that's the closest one I can think of. Yeah, the hologon level, or the scenes.
Even then, I didn't feel the sense of urgency in that conversation. Yes, there was some genocide on the line, but here is more personal. Discovery, the ship that is out of time, and its position is still kind of fragile in this new place. And suddenly, big ship, big bad, tendrils are going to be lancing out in a minute. It's creepy weird. I'm scared. And they're going at it with full force banter. I love it. I was terrified. I still am, because those of you who have seen this episode know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And I think, tell me what you guys think of this. And Dag and Renzo, you can help me. The folks in our chat can weigh in on this. So do you think that the way she handled this and going after Osira the way she did was kind of that overcompensation for not having the experience in command? And the reason I say that is because watching that scene and us talking about it kind of reminds me of something that I learned from playing football. And that is, if you don't know what you're doing in a certain play, you won't get yelled at if you just drop the guy in front of you, knock him down. As long as you do that, then you're good. Is this kind of well, she's not sure what to do, so she's just going to go on the offensive? Because I
don't think she went on the offensive, though, at any point, right? Like, she tries to draw a line in the sand,
Mm-hmm.
and Osiris certainly crosses it, but it was a bluff from Tilly's part from the beginning. I don't think she had the Gorm to really do the threat of just self-destruct. I don't think she had it. I think that's an interesting question that we might learn next episode, whether she actually had the guts to do it. But I'm not sold on it. But I think that the bluff was the right call anyways.
I like how you slid in Gorham. Nice Firefly
Oh
reference.
no, not that, not Gorm, Gorm, Gorm. It's an actual word.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Anyways,
As you were.
point is, yeah, it doesn't matter. Point is,
Dag just
I
shut
thought that-
down. He's like,
I liked the scene. I thought that it was really well done. I don't like the scene that follows. I don't like the tendrils that snake around the ship. I don't like
Yeah.
boarding parties that come in with the shields up. Like, I have many issues with all that, but we'll get there.
We'll get
Yeah.
there indeed. So, Tilly's like, all right, enough with the Freud. What do you want? Pretty forcefully, like that too. Osira says she wants the ship, the spore drive, and the crew as leverage. Tilly counters with a solid no. Cut back over to Sukal's Citadel. I call it the Citadel because that was what this episode was titled before it was changed to Sukal.
Was it
that's just
really?
what I'd call it.
oh,
The beast approaches him on these stairs while he is building a new totem, which I thought was like, whoa, we're already here. Cool. I didn't think they could get that close to each other. That's why it was locked away. Michael is already there, showing that this is where she ended up after her little quantum leap. She sees Culber and Saru enter. The beast demands that Sukal see me. And no, I'm not doing an ASMR channel for you guys. Sukal panics, unleashing an energy burst throughout the room, the ship, the nebula, and it even hits Discovery. Stamets, as we flash back there, says he has to reroute all power. Both Discovery and Osira decloak and are ready to fire. They stand off with full weapons. Tilly tells Stamets to get in the spore cube. Book says he'll get the away team on his own ship. Book beams out. Stamets goes to the spore cube to jump. And it's also said in this scene that whatever energy burst hit them has destabilized the dilithium chamber on Discovery, hinting at a source of that thing that happened 120 years ago. I don't remember what they call it.
And even Reno was like in this scene, and she was doing something.
She had one line. You had one line, and you got it good. You did good. It was great. The beast at Tanagra. Thanks, Smurfs. We love you. Okay, so we go back to the Citadel, and Sukal is still freaking out, but Saru starts singing that lullaby that he learned from the Elder, and it calms the situation. Sukal walks away, and the away team sort of faces the beast, and it kind of leaves of its own accord, too. On Discovery, Osira hails again. They banter some more. Tilly says they can trade fire, but she'll blow up Discovery before she hands it over. Osira deduces why they haven't jumped yet. Their captain is in the nebula somewhere.
she is smart.
Tilly-
This is almost like Kirk facing off with, well, no, Spock facing off with Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness. Kind of more of a, well, I'm going to do this. Well, if you do that, then that's going to happen. Well, then I'm going to do this.
Right. And at the end, Khan's just like, okay, look, we can play this game all the live long day, but we know that I'm going to win. So just stop and let me get what I want.
Pretty much.
Book beams to his ship to pick up the away team. And as soon as his ship is clear from Discovery, they go to black alert. But then two dudes in Daft Punk helmets show up in the spore cube and grab Stamets before he can initiate the jump. We go outside and we see Osira's ship and little Discovery, and these tendrils are just lancing out. And I'm like, what are these? Packlids from Lower Decks?
Lower
What's
Decks.
going
I
on
was
here?
thinking it was like the Narada too, right? The Narada
Oh,
had
yeah.
that same kind of look as well around the Kelvin.
Very much so.
Right.
So just tractor beams aren't a thing in this century anymore, I guess.
But why
Honestly-
tendrils? I mean, I don't.
Because it's creepier.
Yeah.
Don't
It's
you remember
cooler.
those tendrils that threatened the
Visceral-
galaxy in 2399?
Yeah.
Crawling out of the red wormhole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, so I have some issues with it, right? Like,
Mhm.
we know Discovery had its shields up. So that's going to be an impediment to general transporting. But we know that shields can be beamed through if you have the right technology. Cool. So it sounds like the Emerald Chain has just the technology to beam through Starfleet shields, even updated ones. Fine. But that the ship's own like internal alarms didn't go off and didn't start doing anything. They didn't start setting up force fields anywhere, that nothing started happening. They just kind of sat there and took it while the ship got boarded. Come on now. I mean, other shows have handled boarding of your ship way better than this. And I think that this just kind of came off as very sophomoric, like very, very bad. Like in an episode of Andromeda, there's a great scene where the computer threatens to turn the ship's invaders to mush by just raising the grav plating. I'll just put it up to 40G. Is that okay with you guys, kind of thing? Like, or turn it off and slam them into the roof, right? Like, they have all these technological options, and the ship does nothing. They do nothing but just stand there. Not a fan.
What was the name of the TNG episode, season 3? It was the one where Picard and Data had that discussion about the Irish reunification. It was the one where Dr. Crusher...
Up the long ladder?
No. The one where Crusher got kidnapped by those people that could just, boom, phase in and out of places, and found out that was actually killing them.
Yeah.
What was it called?
The Agosians, what were they, I think?
Something.
Roga Danar's people?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
This wasn't Roga Danar.
Nope. This was a whole different episode.
I know what you're talking about, but what are you trying to get to?
Here's where I'm going. So they were popping in on the Enterprise D, and there were no alarms there. No, I don't recall any alarms or intruder alert, anything like that. So I'm just saying that there's kind of been a precedent of that sudden beaming.
Discovery is an understaffed ship. We know it's only got like 80-something people, and it's got a space for much more. It's a large ship, but way understaffed. You should, as such, then expect that you have your computer ready to do some defensive measures, right? Like, oh, people are beaming in, force fields. Literally bulkheadize the ship that way, right? Force them to cut through things. And that, the Emerald Chain can hack their way through or whatever. That's fine, but that buys you time, right? The fact that they were able to just beam in everywhere, it's not a good look for Starfleet's defenses here.
Yep. I don't disagree with you at all. That's a good point. What do you got next for a Santa Dag?
Nervous tension reliving this, man. Whew.
So how about this? In the Message in a Bottle episode of Voyager, right? When they had to go to the USS Prometheus and the two EMHs take back the ship against the Romulans, they just put a Necessine glass over the whole ship and knocked them all out. Something like that could have been tried. It probably wouldn't have worked because they had those masks on, but they didn't even try it. They didn't do shit. They just stood there and let their ship be boarded and taken from them.
It's things like this where I'm like, if I had been the commander on board, one of the things I remember most about Sisko and Picard, because those are my two favorite Star Treks, but Janeway does it too, is before they exhaust all of their own ideas, they ask for suggestions. They need to have this bubble of things to draw on in order to effectively deal with whatever the problem is. And during this scene, we've got Detmer, Owo, Bryce and Reese. I don't remember who else was there, but it would have been
Nilsson
an opportune time. Was Nilsson even there? I didn't
think
see
so.
Nilsson.
Nilsson should have been there. I don't remember seeing her. But, anyway.
But it would have been an opportune time to be like, suggestions. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Like, raise all force fields, anesthetine gas, lock on to non-us signatures, and beam them into the warp plasma conduits.
But how are you going to do that when in a split second they're already on the bridge pointing guns at you?
There was time between things. There was
that's
time
when you have a
they...
macro set up where you have a macro that already targets non-us life signs that aren't authorized and beams them into warp plasma conduits.
I just would have hit Control-Alt-Delete.
Remember how they managed to beam the entire crew off of the USS Solvay in Lower Decks, right? Like something along those lines. Just, these are life signs on the ship while we're being attacked and they don't have comm badges on. Beam them to the holding cells or beam them to the warp plasma conduits. That's fine with me at this point, right? Like, just do something. It's the passiveness about it that I found very, very disturbing.
It would be the equivalent. If they had tried
things and failed, that would have been better for me than if they'd done nothing.
Yeah. It would, to me, it'd be the equivalent of having like that bank alarm button underneath the counter where you just have anybody at any console. If you see intruders, you push that button, and for the next until we stop, the ship is constantly scanning itself for these life signs and removing them to a safe place.
Oh,
That would be really cool.
Just got to make sure you give Grudge a com badge then, right?
No. Grudge
tried to
is a
put-
feline life form and is registered on the sensors as an acceptable crew member.
Okay.
Renzo, question for you: have you ever tried to put anything on a cat? A shirt,
We
a
had
sweater,
a
leash,
cat.
anything?
No, none of that.
It's
we had
ridiculous.
a collar on it with a bell, and the cat hated the bell. So
You'll get the shit scratched out of you trying to. And if you think Grudge is going to walk around with a com badge on her,
it'd be so cute though.
My cats are cool. We just
All right,
do stuff to them.
Let's see.
Give them all the leashes and collars and flea stuff.
Now, I will say this much. I don't know how Osira knew about the cube, and that's how they controlled the spore drive, and that Stamets was that integral to it. I don't know quite how she had those details. It's feasible to me that she could have gotten them. She could have hacked that detail from Earth, because Earth did have those details. But she made the right tactical choice by targeting that. That was a smart call on her character level choice.
yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure where she would have gotten the intelligence information to know that was a vital thing to get first. Maybe a scan. Maybe they scanned the ship and knew that, okay, well, now this is where we need to go, and someone on Osiris Bridge gave her some kind of signal or something.
If the Viridian is advanced enough to scan down to that level and identify everything that fast, and she can transport through the shields, and she doesn't have to care about Starfleet's weaponry, and she was able to take a transwarp conduit, she's already won. She's already won this. She just needs to actually pull the trigger on things, right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't think that makes sense. I think there's got to be more to it than that. Somebody suggesting, Wardogheim is suggesting it too, and I like this suggestion. She's got an in at Starfleet. I think that makes sense. Some spy high level in there. That could be
Vance.
I don't know if it's Vance or if it's his ex, the security lady that he had along too.
That we haven't seen in a while.
Or
Yeah.
yet another nobody who is somehow significant.
Right.
Like the cook in the Hunt for Red October.
Somebody in chat was like,
Love that movie.
you know, Linus could have just accidentally beamed in somewhere, seen intruders, and beamed out. I'm like, what if Linus beamed over to Osiris ship by accident?
Oh, well, here's a good
please
example.
do that. I hope they do that. That would be.
Here's a good example of this. Remember the Voyager episode? I think it's the end of season 2 where Seska and the Kazon take over
Basics.
Voyager. Right.
Yep.
They had serious struggles getting through doors, getting through shields, and because Seska had been on the ship, she left code on the ship that let her bypass things, and she was a trained Obsidian Order spy. She had a lot of time to access these systems, and it still took her time to get through things, right? Yet the Emerald Chain, like a hot knife through butter through any defenses that they seem to have, right? Like there are steps in the logical story here that are just missing.
One Obsidian Order agent with experience on Voyager versus one green future girl and a 22nd century boy.
True. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. What do you guys think? We're going to continue. So in engineering, while all this is going down, Adira's like, I think I can help them, but I'm going to need your comm badge. And Jet's like, here. Book takes off and is flying through the nebula to get the away team. He gets them, communicates with them, and tells them whatever happened almost caused another burn. They're all super intrigued to look at Sukal and be like, wow, that's amazing. Culber speculates that in utero, Sukal may have absorbed much of the anomalies that were surrounding this world, infusing him with this incredible power. Which reminds me of Spock on Genesis.
I just.
Spock's moods were messing with the planet.
Good point. Good point. Or was it the other way around? Was the planet messing with his moods?
I didn't think that they were. I think it was the. Okay, hold on.
My causal relation reversal has been.
I'm trying to think
successful.
because Savick.
I don't know.
Savick was talking about that. I think it was the planet had the effect on Spock, not Spock had the effect on the planet. But don't quote me on that. But
I'm sure if it works one way, it works both ways for that kind of thing.
okay. And that's the thing that I don't like about this. It is this Kelpian somehow developed this the Dark Phoenix thing. Suddenly, if not contained, there's all kinds of just chaos. And okay,
We've seen other beings get omnipotency in Star Trek before. We've seen many of an omnipotent being just out there, right? Is this any sillier than the hand gripping the Enterprise and holding it in orbit? No, it's not sillier.
Okay.
Is it any sillier than Amanda Rogers? I think that was her name. Like undoing Q, turning Crusher into an Irish setter. No, it's not any sillier than that, right? But there's like a lack of work here, right? Because all those other ones, they don't tell us why they got those powers. They don't tell us that. Here they're telling us radiation and energy. Now he's a Q or something similar to
it. Was
right?
midi-chlorians.
That's about the same level of woohoo for it.
So we are now beyond Star Wars podcast.
Yeah, Kevin Uxbridge is another good example, right? Like as a Dowd, like he had the ability to affect the entire galaxy.
Or John Doe from Transfigurations, a species on the cusp of transcending into energy beings.
Or the Organians, right? Like they also had that sort of power. We've had many a race that would have been affected by this and who has some kind of like vested interest in life in our universe or our galaxy. Why did nobody do anything?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that there's not precedence. I know there's precedence for this kind of thing, and that you're right. There have been stranger things that have happened. I'm just saying that it really seems like if you're going to take an event that instantly killed thousands, millions, what was
billions, probably
the casualty rate on the burn?
Probably billions, really.
On ships?
And
okay, well, let's just say
lithium reactors.
Okay, so let's say it was millions. But you're going to take something that cataclysmic in the galaxy and wash it all down to a kid that had a tantrum. The whole thing that happened with Kevin Uxbridge was he made the whole Husnock race go extinct. Just done, wiped them out. Mm-hmm. That wasn't quite on the scale as it was to end warp travel. Dilithium was already rare, made that worse. I think that a lot happened in a large scale to just say it was a temper tantrum or something.
A stretch.
Okay.
Here's a stretch to offer. We have seen another life form who has the ability to manipulate and enhance warp fields. Mm-hmm. And it might be that the association of Tau Alpha C, it might be a dilithium world or near one, and those energies are infused into them as well. And of course, the viewers, the Traveler. So maybe this child is a first in a variant Traveler that has a connection to the energies of dilithium and something. Okay, that's where it becomes a stretch. I'm sorry.
I like what Jink Poe is saying here in the chat. We doing that? We doing the Traveler? And Anne Marie's calling for Kevin Uxbridge. I think it's going to jump the shark. If they do that, the show is jump the shark.
As long as it's space shark, like a Gormagander. Can we have it jumping the Gormagander?
Oh my god!
All right, I'm doing this. So books like I'm Going to Beam You Up and Saru and Michael debate about who gets to stay. Michael wins, exploiting Saru's desire to connect with Sakal. Michael beams back. Culber stays. Adira shows up, having stowed aboard Book's ship and has all the radiation pills. On Book's ship, Michael is sick. Book gives her a hypo. The ship has to leave the nebula. It's calling out critical radiation exposure. Outside the nebula, the tendrils are tapping into Discovery as crazy weird as possible. And Stamets is in the spore cube like, I'm not going to do anything you say. And then they put this thing on his device and he's like, I'm ready to do anything you say.
Yeah, it was a mind-controlled device, which if all else fails, just fall back on the classic mind control trope.
Yeah, if you actually play the hum that makes the noise when they place it on there, if you take that hum and you compress it down, it actually says, "My mind to your mind, your thoughts to my thoughts." Anyway,
So now we're playing a record backwards.
It does have the right places kind of covered on the head,
Oh.
though. So
hey, and wait a second. Now I'm going spinning off because Sutra was an android who could do the mind melding thing. So what if it's Sutra Tech? Next time on Beyond Trek podcast. All right. Osira and crew beam onto the bridge of the ship and has a minor moment of banter where Tilly's like, "You're going to have to kill me." Osira's like, "And get blood all over the chair?" No. And just bodily hauls Tilly on the other side of the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
All the badges are taken from the bridge crew. And as Detmer tries to lock out the ship, they're like, "No, we're going to shoot you." They don't, but Detmer stops. Osira takes the helm and says, "Let's do this." Michael and Book's ship emerges from the nebula just as Discovery jumps, taking Osira's ship with it. And Michael calls out, "We're too late." And
Now,
that's
I
where the
will
episode
say-
ends.
the scene with the Viridian with its tendrils wrapped around Discovery and they do the jump out from spore drives, that was pretty sweet. That was really fucking sweet. Doesn't make up for the fact that the whole scene doesn't make any sense, but whatever, it looked cool.
I just figured the tendrils must have tapped into whatever systems that spore thing could do, and based on the readings that
Oh, I didn't
Osira
mean
had
that didn't make
already
sense.
taken. Oh, okay.
No, I didn't mean that didn't make sense. I meant the boarding and taking of Discovery didn't make any sense to me.
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to give this episode like 6 lullabies out of 10. It was
Well said.
entertaining and intriguing to watch, but as you at home can tell, we have found a couple of places where either the writing is weak or the characters are intentionally being written as less than capable for certain reasons.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think like 3 out of 5 question marks, status exclamation points is a pretty good place to put it too, right? Like it has some good plot expansion. I don't necessarily like where it's taking the plot, but it's interesting. It's very much in the vein of historical Trek. It just parts of it just come off as lazy. Like another good example of a ship being boarded and how the crew handles it comes from a Star Trek video game called Elite Forces 2, where the Enterprise E gets boarded by a race called the Idril, right?
Yeah.
They can't hack the ship from the inside. They don't have the command codes. They have nothing like that. So instead, they attach computers to access ports on the outside of the ship and try and force hacking it, right? So you have this awesome mission where you're walking on the outside hull of the Enterprise E and then have to like take out their computer systems that are trying to hack the Enterprise. Cool. That's cool. That's fucking awesome. And you can totally see that that's what they do with the tendrils, right? But they put work into making that story make sense in the game.
Mhm.
If you put work into making that kind of story make sense in the show, then the story you're trying to tell makes more sense. Just put in the work. Don't just tell us that they hacked everything and they got control. Like make it make some sense. And I just don't think that they did that.
I was just thinking, if this was Battlestar Galactica and they get out of this alive, one of the new security procedures is going to be when we jump to point A, our returns coordinates are scrambled.
Yeah.
Because Osira exploits that. She's like, "Wow, you already
Yes.
dialed the Starfleet command. This is great." Cool. I would have like cleared that out and been like Hill Valley, November 21st, 1955. That's where we're taking it.
They should have locked their screens, right? Like everybody that works
Yeah.
in security or cybersecurity knows that if you step away from a computer, it should lock its screen automatically. You don't want to leave it open. Here, they essentially left all their screens open, and all the Viridian like guards had to do is just push the person aside, take over. Now they've got the ship. Need better cybersecurity.
I still agree. How they knew they needed Stamets is interesting.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's something that wasn't really sitting right with me. They knew where to go and they knew who to take. So,
Inside
One-
man or woman.
right. So why don't we do this? Well, you guys let me know how you want to do it. So we've got some social media sites to show folks where they can find us. We have some thank yous to some contributors, and then we also have this is going to be our first time doing this as well, is a call-in number. So there's going to be a phone number I'm going to put on the screen here shortly, the Beyond Trek hotline, as it were. Really, it's just a Google Voice number that forwards to my cell phone. So we've got that just to see if anyone who's listening or watching wants to give a call and talk with us a little bit, kind of tell us your thoughts or impressions on this episode or of
Or
Discovery
on
up
us
to this
about
point.
the episode.
or us, or right, anything like that. So do you want to do the websites and thank yous first, then
Yeah,
the number, or the
I
number
got
first,
this.
and then, okay.
I got this. The first thing I want to do is give a shout out to Jenk Poe because he's like, Disco should be jumping all the other Starfleet ships everywhere if they can do this with the Osiris ship. So good job. Socials are going to be really easy. If you just go into the channel, you can see Patreon, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Beyond Trek. If you Google Beyond Trek Productions or Beyond Trek Podcast, you'll find us everywhere. And most of you probably hang out with us on Beyond Trek Pod. They're also on the screen right here. I do want to give a shout out to Stephanie Baker and Jim Cook, our Patreon and Anchor subscribers. If you enjoyed any part of this or the John Billingsley episode, consider becoming a Patreon, where all the proceeds go into production costs, and we just do this for fun. Yeah, hit us up here and around the web. And Jay, if you want to make it so.
Here's a pop quiz for you here. So in this number, and this is December 26, 2020. If you are listening to this after that date and call this number, okay, yeah, I'll answer it. Talk to you for a little bit. So 513-279-2344. Pop quiz for you. For you guys, Renzo, Dag, even for the folks in our live chat, what is the significance of 2344? Dag, you're muted. That's our tradition. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, he's calling. I think he might be. Not ringing yet. Did you dial the right number? Oh, okay. Here we go.
Call from.
Thank you for calling the Beyond Trek
press
podcast
1.
hotline.
To send a voicemail,
What?
press 2.
Oh, I have to accept the call. Okay.
That's probably for the best.
There we go. Beyond Trek hotline.
So 2344 is when the Enterprise C disappeared.
The Enterprise C. You got it. 2344 was the Battle of Naranja 3, in which the Enterprise C was presumed lost with all hands, defending the Klingon colony there from an attack by the Romulans. There you go.
I should be on mute on everything, so you should be able to hear me.
Oh,
We can
yeah.
hear you.
Yeah, we hear you just fine.
Okay.
You do hear me, right?
Yeah.
I can hear you just fine. I just didn't want you to get like feedback.
No, it's good.
Now, out of curiosity, Dad, can you hear me through your phone? Did that end up working or not?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Good. Cool.
Hey guys, I just wanted to prove to you that it works. We got it dialed in. So if you want to call in and banter with us, the number's right here.
This is what I had to get from Amazon. So just to let you folks know, we had been testing this stuff, doing the live stream, having like this, phone number thing. And I had to get this cable through Amazon because in the testing we had, anyone who called me could hear me, and these guys could hear them, but the caller could not hear like Dag and Renzo. So I scoured, did the Google Foo and YouTube and all that stuff, and I found one video where this guy was showing how to do exactly what I wanted with the same equipment, the Zoom H6 recorder. And as luck would have it, in this YouTube video, the guy had this thick accent that I couldn't hardly understand. And so when he was describing the cable, what to get, I had to keep rewinding and turn on closed caption. And the closed caption was just like, I don't know what the fuck this guy is saying. So that was out. But yeah, this is what I got to make it work. It's basically
Great success.
Yeah. So it worked. This thing for the phone.
I got to go because people might be trying to call in.
I mean, I do. Ooh, you know what? I'm sure this thing has call waiting. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I know my phone has call waiting, but Google Voice number.
But does
who
Google
knows?
Voice? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point because I have really not ever used Google Voice. So
Shout out to Anne Marie in chat for calling us the coolest people for having a hotline.
Yeah. Well, Anne Marie, call us. Golly,
If
there's
you
a number
like,
right there
if
on
you
your.
like
Don't
my,
be shy.
my Christmas elf ears, give me a high five.
I like the Christmas elf ears. I like the hat.
I like
So,
my Christmas elf ears.
real quick, I just wanted to say that this episode, I found myself at several different times kind of bored with it. It wasn't doing it for me. Now the thing between Tilly and Osira was really cool. I like that, but it just seemed like all the stuff on the holodeck on the ship, whatever. I don't know. I just it was like
Big
does
J,
this need to be this weird?
I'm
Like
with you.
this?
I made a terrible mistake. I watched The Expanse season 5, episode 4, immediately before watching the Discovery episode, just on timelines that just one right into the next. And man, it colored my first watching of the Discovery episode, because that episode from The Expanse was just like, holy shit, I need a cigarette. I need like 5. This is ridiculous. And then I went to Discovery and was like, okay, well, I guess this is okay. So it was definitely a roller coaster just in that.
It was. And I think what's kind of clouding my enthusiasm for this one is we're getting towards, if we're not already there, of the burn being an unfortunate accident. I was just kind of hoping that they wouldn't go that route and maybe make it something a little more nefarious or malicious. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just me. I just think that the accident thing is like, I might come around to it and think differently about it, but that's how I felt about this episode.
The next episode, if anybody has seen the trailer, is going to be equally as urgent and suspenseful.
Well, I haven't watched the trailer, so if you want to talk about the trailer, I'm going to have to take my headphones off.
Nah, I'm not gonna.
Or turn down my...
Renzo, if you saw it, you understand what I'm talking about.
See, I don't watch the trailers because I like to be surprised. Am
I
I the only
usually
one that
avoid
does
it.
that?
No,
I usually avoid
I'm
them.
trailer trash.
I usually avoid them, Jay, but like when it's something leaves me on like a cliffhanger, I can't. I'm just gonna watch it.
Okay. Well, yeah. This is where I started doing the whole not watching previews thing. It was with 24. You guys remember the show 24? And
gosh.
every episode ended in like some dire situation or cliffhanger, something like that. And I wouldn't watch the preview for the next one because I didn't want to see how or if Jack Bauer got out of whatever situation that he was in. So, yeah, got used to not watching that.
I feel you. I watched a good bit of 24, and I hated that. I hate that whole every episode must end in a cliffhanger thing. A lot of shows have done that. I just find it so tiresome.
Yeah. So for any of our brave listeners or viewers that are still in our live chat here, if you're feeling game, give us a call and talk to the Beyond Trek podcast hosts. That is 513-279-2344. I'm sure we're going to get some brave soul sooner or later.
Maybe next week. Doesn't have to be. No pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's not like a
actually,
Howard Stern
guys,
show. We're not going to pull any pranks on you or anything.
We are going to see you again in another live stream to check out the thrilling continuation of Discovery as the fate of the Federation hangs in the balance.
So is it going to be a good episode? No spoilers, but what's the one before the season finale? So I'm sure these last 2 episodes are going to be pretty good.
Yeah. Well, and the season finale episode is called Outside. And given the preference for that word in this episode, I have a feeling we're in the beginning of a trilogy.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
I like that. I could go for a 3-parter for the end of this season. That'd be good. I'm game for that.
I'm just hoping that, at some point we'll get That Hope Is You Part 2 just to make it make a bit more sense. But we'll see.
It's too late for that.
I know. At least not this season.
Everybody, I think it's time to say until next time.
All right. Until next time. So we're out. Come see us next week for our live stream. We're going to have another one. So it's going to be really cool. And hopefully we don't have any technical glitches.
We are Beyond Track Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.